Dr. Mirko Goss had never been in a position like this before. He was sitting in a small hotel room with a man. That man had a gun pointed at him and showed every sign of intending to use it. Dr. Goss had no clue who this man was or what he wanted. The ordeal had started as he had left his office and gone to the parking garage. That area of the hospital had always given him the creeps, even as a man of education. It was always just a little too dim, a little too wet, and when it wasn't too crowded, it felt too exposed. And it seemed that after all these years, that mild instinctual fear had proven to be justified. As he had gone to get into his car, the man had walked up next to him, stuck the gun in his side, and told him to hand over his phone. He had then forced him to drive to this motel, and now he was just sitting in a chair with the gun pointing at Dr. Goss. And he had been there for an intolerable length of time. Finally, he said, "You don't know who I am, do you, Doctor? I suppose it is silly, perhaps vain of me to think you would recognize me. I'm sure you've saved many lives over the years, although I doubt you had many quite like me." Realization dawned within the doctor's mind as the face suddenly clicked. About 5 years before, a very bad car accident. Mother and 3 children dead, father very close to joining them. He had saved this man's life, and now he was going to kill him for it. "So, you remember me now. Good old Bernie Linford. That's good. I won't have to go over all the stuff you already know. How you saved my life, how I spent months on death's door, then in the end pulled through. I'm sure you can guess at the rehabilitation I've had to endure. I doubt you have any clue about the misery of living while my whole family was killed. And that's why you're here, Doctor. I've been taking care of the people who put me through the worst day of my life. 3 are already dead and another will die here tonight. Then it will be over. You see, the accident was only the last bit. The cherry on top, if you will. Earlier that day I was fired from my software job. Then I went to my friend's house, where we had been developing a new game, and got treated to his beating around the bush about how well negotiations were doing with getting it made. Turns out that he had made a deal, and he was going to make a lot of money from it. I had trusted him. He had tricked me into signing the game over to him. And then I went home and caught my wife in bed with another man. Of course, she hadn't been expecting me home that early. She didn't know that I had seen her. I left for a while. She didn't see me. I just went off and hid a bit for a while. Then I went home after the kids were back from school as if nothing was wrong. I decided to take them all out for dinner. Shit, maybe I would pretend things were fine for one night. One night before whatever. That's when we got into the wreck. And I truly lost everything. And you kept me alive. Maybe you're feeling helpless right now. That's how I felt. Totally helpless. My job was given to some hotshot fresh out of college. My best friend stabbed me in the back over money, and my wife was fucking some delinquent bad boy high school student. No wonder she didn't want to make love anymore. Then to cap it all off, they were killed and I lived. Nothing was in my control that day. You made sure of that. So for the last few years, I've been planning my revenge. I got a big paycheck from the insurance, of course. My body's messed up pretty bad still, and 3 people died. It was the other guy's fault. The home company of that hauling service couldn't throw enough money my way to make sure it all went away as quietly as possible. So I had plenty of time and nothing else to worry about except dealing with the people who ruined everything. I started with a kid who was banging my wife. Managed to track him down, hired some guys to deal with him. No, not kill him. No. I wanted to do that myself. I hired them to rape him. See, that's how I wanted to deal with them all. Ruin their lives in a way similar to how they ruined mine. So I arranged for that kid to get gang raped. Then I left him alone for over a year. Over a year to sit and simmer on that while I dealt with the other two. Barbara, the woman who fired me, that one was a bit trickier. Obviously, it would take some doing to get her fired from her job, and it had to be in a way that really put her on the skids. I wish I had the money to just buy the place she was working at and fire her personally. That would have been nice. Of course, it was a multi-billion-dollar software firm, so I got her set up for embezzlement instead. A sweet little slice of work. Then I left her to simmer while I dealt with Jack, my old best buddy. Of course, I had it in there. I was working for him. See, he must have felt bad. He offered me a pretty well-paying job on the development team. I doubt he expected me to say yes, but I did. You know, Jack was pretty hard to deal with. He didn't have any real vices I could exploit. He was also paranoid and a bit of a security freak. So, cracking him took some time. In the end, I discovered he did have one vice: young men. So it turned out to be fairly easy to set him up for a scandal. An underage male prostitute that looked legal, a few tips-offs to the paparazzi, and boom, easy. Then, a couple of days ago, I decided to pull the trigger on my plans. Literally. Broke into the kid's house, told him why he had been attacked, then shot him a few times. I hope it took a good, long time for him to bleed to death. Barbara, tracked her down, kidnapped her just like I did you. Took her into a backwoods cabin I bought and abused her for a few days. I beat her, I raped her, cut her, whatever I could think of. Then I changed her to the floor, chained her to the floor, and left her there. She's probably still alive. Not for long. Jack, good old Jack. He was trickier. He figured I might be the one behind it, you see, so I couldn't just walk right in. He was hiding out in his big, fancy yacht up in Seattle. Thought he was safe. He thought wrong. I bribed the security guards to leave, then went in and beat him up. I had some fun hurting him, too. Of course, the best part was when I tied him up to a table and started shooting holes in the bottom of the boat. After driving it out a ways, of course. Took quite a few shotgun blasts to get some decent leaks going, but once they were, I got into a raft I had prepared earlier and got a ways away to watch the show. Tried to imagine how he must have felt as the water rose up around him. Helpless. Just like I had. And that's what I hope. Took a pretty long time for it to sink, too. Plenty of time for him to suffer. Which brings me to you, Doc. Everyone else has been dealt with. Now it's time to finish this. I was doing my job. Of course you were. What? You thought I was gonna kill you? Nah, Doc. Haven't you figured out why you made me feel helpless too? No. It wasn't an accident. I drove in front of that truck on purpose, try and kill all of us. And I failed. Everyone died except me. You made me feel helpless because you had taken away my ability to even kill myself. The one thing a person should never have taken away from them is the right to choose how they die if they want to. But I don't want to kill you, Doc. After all, you did right by me as far as you and society were concerned. Nah, once I had healed enough that I could have killed myself, I was too pissed off to finish it. I wanted to get back at the people who drove me to it in the first place, and now I have. So now I can finally finish what I started. Why did you bring me here? Because you did make a mistake, Doc. You saved me when I wanted to die. Not your fault, but I am angry about that. So your punishment is going to be to sit there and watch me die. Maybe I also want someone to make sure people know who did what to who and why I've done what I've done. Before he could say or do anything, Bernie brought the gun up to his head and pulled the trigger. But the last thought he had was, at last it's over. The doctor checked out everything the police had checked out everything the doctor told them, and it all turned out to be true. Not that he had ever entertained the notion Bernie had been lying about his deeds. Barbara was found alive, but she died in the hospital within days. The young man had likely not survived more than a couple of minutes. Enough evidence was found to convince the police that he had also told the truth about killing his old friend Jack, and they were still trying to figure out where the yacht might be. A few weeks later, Dr. Mirko Ghost left his office at Cravenhurst Medical Center and went back to check on his patients. It was fairly usual as far as his rounds went. The ones waiting to have surgery done were worried, but he did his best to assure them. The ones recovering were thankful things had gone well. He took his time today, as he had for the last couple of weeks. There was one patient he was not looking forward to seeing, but he steeled himself, and as he walked in past the police officer guarding the door, he sat down next to Bernie. The man had some serious brain damage, but it was pretty clear Bernie was still there. Those eyes burned into the doctor's head as he carried out his tasks. Before he left, he looked down into those eyes and spoke. "There's no point in hating me. You knew how good I was from when I saved you the first time, Bernie, and you really should have known I wasn't just going to sit there and watch you bleed to death. Not when it was clear you hadn't died outright. I'm afraid you're going to be feeling helpless the rest of your life, and it won't be a short one. You already had brain damage from the wreck, and the bullet damaged a lot of your motor centers. You aren't paralyzed, but you will be under care for the rest of your life." Shaking his head, he looked at the door, thinking of the policeman outside. If it's any consolation, you won't be going to jail. You will be put into the asylum and cared for there. It's a good facility. You'll get very well cared for. Bernie managed a weak, grunting moan as the doctor left the room, along with an equally weak attempt to move. Then it went quiet, and though the anger was there, something else crept in. Another feeling. Helplessness.